I only started watching the show about a month ago, so I'm fairly new to all of the discussions surrounding the show, the books, and the entire franchise. But I do know for sure that I love Eloise Bridgerton, and she deserves better than to end up with Philip Crane, whoever the he is. So if you're watching this, there's a high likelihood that you already know her. But just to recap, she is the 5th child and 2nd daughter of Viscount and Viscountess Bridgerton, is a character from the Bridgerton series by Julia Quinn and adapted to the screen by Shonda. Her hobbies include reading, complaining about the state of women's rights.
Whistledown is a woman, therefore she has nothing. And still, she writes.
Hating on high society.
Making simpering conversation and pretending not to wince every time a man treads on my toes during a waltz. I'm no good at those things, Mama. I should only make a fool of myself.
Hanging out with her best friend Penelope, another character that I love, and smoking in the swings with her brother, Benedict Bridgerton, another character that I love. She also has the best bangs in the ton and is the Jo March to Daphne's Meg March. Eloise, despite having her nose in a book all the time, only understands class inequality and the intersections of different marginal struggles through a limited lens. She was born into wealth and grew up in a town filled with neighbors who are also part of the upper echelons of society. In the very first season, she asks,
Bath already? How does a lady come to be with child? I thought one needed to be married.
Whatever are you talking about?
Apparently it's not even a requirement. Eloise, that is more than enough.
signaling her lack of knowledge and understanding on taboo topics as she is shielded by her mother from such matters. I don't fault Violet Bridgerton for that, and in fact agree with the sentiment that parents should create a place of refuge for their children amidst the horrors of the real world. But Eloise constantly mentions her desire to be more than just a wife and voices her disdain for high society.
This gets over with.
She wants to understand the world outside the confines of her ton, her station, her gender, which she cannot really do because women at the time were not yet allowed to enroll in educational institutions. She then idolizes Lady Whistledown and plans to unmask her. During her hunt down of Lady Whistledown's identity, she mistakes the staff as the author, but her theory is quickly debunked.
I beg your pardon. You believe a servant would ever have the time to be Lady Whistledown with all the work we must do? You believe I would be working for you if I had all the money Whistledown does?
She did not yet understand the difficulty of being a part of the working class, as she is still allowed to read and hang out with Penelope all day. But through her independent research, she starts to learn a lot more. In the second season, her endeavors lead her outside of their bubble and she meets Theo Sharp.
Pleased to meet you, Miss Eloise. I'm Theo Sharp.
I know.
You know.
Theo works at one of the publishing houses and is himself an author. The relationship blooms and they challenge each other's views. Eloise helps him understand women's struggles, and Theo shares his understanding and experience from a proletariat perspective. Eloise's privilege also needs to be called out by someone. So far, Penelope, Theo, and Cressida have all done so, and she does start to see her own selfishness. She really was in her own little world and failed to see her own best friend is the very woman she has dedicated all her time and energy searching for. Sadly, Season 3 Part 2 threw most of that away, and all that character development just went out of the door. She didn't at least try to understand that Cressida did what she did out of desperation, saving herself from the horror of being sold off to a man old enough to be her grandfather, a man that still expected her to bear his babies. So if in case Theo Sharp returns, I do hope that they push each other to be better people and writers, to be more open to the things that they do not yet understand. They love to share their thoughts on books and theories, so it's just great to see that play out on screen and see two literaries go at it. Also, I think that a lot of you mistake sex for intimacy, but this right here is intimacy.
I set them aside for you. Thought perhaps you might share your thoughts on them.
There is another route that they can take with Eloise's character. When Claudia Jessie was asked about her thoughts on the fan theory that Eloise is queer, she says, "I've always loved that there's this coding that people have with Eloise. There's a strength in her that I think a queer storyline can connect. And I've always been touched by that as a notion with Eloise, but yeah, there's definitely room for all of that." In Season 3, fans have been speculating on where Cressida and Eloise's friendship would lead. The showrunner has also expressed her desire to show all types of love. And after reading Eloise's book, I've come to realize that we have already seen a love story of that sort in Queen Charlotte. Queen Charlotte and King George's story was a marriage of convenience type of story that actually resulted in love. Seeing as they're both nobility, their marriage was arranged and they didn't meet prior to their wedding day, but it eventually resulted in love.
From the moment I saw you trying to go over the wall, I have loved you desperately. I cannot breathe when you are not near. I love you, Charlotte.
The conflict in their story was George's mental health issues and how it can affect a relationship, no matter how pure and genuine it may be, and no matter how strong-willed someone is.
I will stand with you between the heavens and the earth. I will tell you where you are. Do you love me?
I love you!
That is basically the whole premise for Eloise and Philip's story, except theirs was written poorly. So if we already have that, then I think it's safe to say that the showrunners can change things up with regards to Eloise. We have already seen all of these different types of stories, and enemies to lovers, a friends to lovers, and now we're being served bisexual representation and a possible sapphic love story. So it's entirely possible for Eloise to also be bisexual or a cishet lesbian. Cis heteronormativity is basically defined as a pervasive system of belief that centers and naturalizes heterosexuality and a binary system of assigned sex or gender when there are two rigid, distinct ways of being: assigned male at birth, masculine men, and assigned female at birth, feminine women. It would make sense why Eloise does not feel comfortable in her own skin when she presents herself as stereotypically feminine. It could just be that she conflated her platonic feelings for Theo as love because she never thought it was possible to love someone of the same sex. Even Benedict Bridgerton, someone older and more learned than her, is only starting to explore. I feel like a Virginia Woolf and Vita Sackville West type of plot for Eloise would make sense for her character. Like Virginia Woolf, Eloise is also an accomplished writer who, even with money and a room of her own, still struggles to break out of the shackles society places on women and women who love women. If there are no Philip Crane haters, that means I no longer walk the earth. I get why many of the book series fans wish to have them be endgame, but it would just not be in alignment to the personality and motivations of show Eloise. She unabashedly calls out a misogynist in the middle of the dance floor.
Next time you compliment a woman, at least try not to insult her entire sex in the process.
And tells her mother that her rebellion is not a passing phase, nor an accessory she puts on. However, in the book, she was kind of different. She was desperate for love and belonging in her world. And Philip in the books was neglectful as a husband and as a father. His only redeeming quality is that he isn't whoring around like the rest of the men, which is honestly the bare minimum. He violated Marina, has a bad temper when it comes to his children and supposedly love of his life, and hates it when Eloise talks. She is quite literally loved because she is a yapper. She wants to discuss her ideas and her opinions, and he just wants to silence her so that they can fuck. That is not in any way, shape, or form cute or endearing. He is straight up objectifying her. There are a lot of issues to touch up on in terms of the relationship between Eloise and Phillip Crane, but I'll sum it up with this. His entire identity is just not compatible with show Eloise and her eventual character growth. If they do end up together, it only negates everything that she stands for in the show. If they do a Shonda Rhimes glow up to his personality, then maybe it can still work, but it would just be better to scrap him altogether. Especially since Julia Quinn herself already let go of creative control and doesn't really mind the showrunners changing the plot and the characters. And Eloise could still end up as a spinster and it would still be valid.
Was it your choice you never married? But everyone tells me it is fate worse than death to end up a spinster. But you seem perfectly content with your situation.
You must know it is hardly ideal. The world is not exactly welcoming to an unmarried woman. There seems to be no place in society for us except at the edge of things.
That rather seems to be society's flaw, not a woman's.
Indeed it does.
I hate nothing more than the humbling brilliant women or the she's just mad because no one wants her trope. Even Shakespeare himself wrote an entire play on this very premise, entitled Taming of the Shrew. Thankfully, it led to one of my favorite films, 10 Things I Hate About You. The play is a comedy, but I just really like the fact that in the latter, Kat at least still kept her rage over the systems that subjugate women.
What I miss?
The oppressive patriarchal values that dictate our education.
Even though she did have much learning to do and would have greatly benefited from listening to lectures and reading books by Angela Davis and other texts on intersectional feminism. And I would really want the same for Eloise. If she couldn't attend university because of historical accuracy, then I would still want for her to actualize her dreams and aspirations through learning on the field. She could broaden her knowledge by immersing herself in working women's environments. By ending up with Theo, they could live a simple life away from the glitz and glamour, and she could ponder on and write on the human condition and the state of women's rights. And going back, Eloise's aversion to chauvinist men isn't taken seriously. Her anger is viewed as a privilege, which it is, but it is such a tired trope and perpetuates this idea that angry women are unloved or simply overacting. Eloise's concerns with being caged by marriage and excluded from participating in society other than going to and throwing parties are all valid.
You look lovely, dear. I look like a prize calf trussed up for auction.
These days, the angry feminist has become a trope used by men and anyone else who panders to patriarchal standards and men's opinions to trivialize feminism and all that it advocates for. But women should be enraged, and to reduce a staunch feminist like Eloise Bridgerton to a desperate spinster, only in her late 20s, mind you, who will cling to the very first man she starts a conversation with and write it off as love is a punch in the gut. The taming of the shrew trope is problematic, not because they should be tamed, but that angry women are not shrews to begin with. So in conclusion, Eloise Bridgerton deserves better.